Do you want to know what the optimal delay time is to stage a two-stage rocket to get the highest altitude? This is going to be a theoretical discussion, but that's what we're going to talk about in this episode of the Advanced Construction Workshop.
Welcome to Advanced Construction Videos, where we show you how to tackle rocketry building techniques and more. On our website, we sell kits, motors, building supplies, and electronics. So come and learn, shop, build, and fly when you visit us at apogeerockets.com.
Hi, I'm Tim Van Milligan from Apogee Components. Today I want to talk about the best time to stage a rocket, a two-stage rocket, to achieve the highest altitude. Now this goes back to when I was a kid, and I got the book, The Handbook of Model Rocketry by G. Harry Stine. And in this book there's a chart that shows what the author thought was the best delay time to stage a rocket to achieve the highest altitude. And basically what the chart shows is to stage at the fastest point in the flight, which is right at motor burnout of the booster stage. So as the rocket takes off, the booster stage burns out, it drops off. That's when you should ignite the top stage to get the highest altitude. And he compares that to, okay, the rocket takes off, it coasts upwards until it slows down to a stop. It's up in the air at this point, and at that point, the top stage fires, the stage separates, and according to his chart, that is the worst time to stage a rocket. So I wanted to run this in our software called RockSim to show you that the chart is not correct for all applications. It's correct for one specific application, but not all of them. So let me show you my desktop here. So here is this two-stage rocket that we have. And I want to run some simulations, and I've already run some, but I'll run them again. So first, we're going to run it with a D12-0 in the booster stage and a D12-7 in the upper stage, but we're actually going to deploy the parachute at Apogee, so it's actually ignoring the delay in the upper stage, because we want to see, because that delay might be short. So we want to make sure that it always deploys at Apogee. So under this flight, I'll go through the simulation here. The rocket is on a 48-inch long launch rail or guide, and it's launched straight up. And we'll say, let's make it 0 wind so that there's nothing affecting the rocket. And we see the flight profile, and this is going to open up a screen showing the rocket sitting on the pad, and it's down here. And let's run the simulation and just see what it looks like. So it's a very small rocket, and I apologize for that. So the rocket has staged. There's smoke right here, but inside the smoke right here is the booster stage falling off. And it staged right when that motor burned out. And let me back it up so you can see that one more time, so you can kind of understand what's going on. At that point, it's staged, it takes off. This is the first simulation. So let's cancel out of that and see exactly how high it went. So that's this simulation right here. The rocket went 1,705 feet. Now let's try that again. This time let's put a delay in the booster motor so that it coasts upwards with the rocket, and it's all going to slow down at the same time. So let's put in a 5-second delay here. So we can just type this in here. And let's look at the flight profile, see what that looks like. Okay, so here's our rocket sitting on the pad again, and we're going to launch it. Rocket takes off. That motor burned out. The rocket's coasting upwards. You can see it's getting slower and slower and slower, and it stops right there at stages. And then it coasts upwards to its apogee point, and then the parachute pops out. Okay, so let's look at this new altitude here. So in this case, the rocket went 1,885 feet. So it was another 80 feet higher by staging when the rocket slowed down to a complete stop. So how can this be? Well, let's run a different simulation and I'll show you where his chart is right. So this time, the only thing that I'm going to change, I'm going to go under launch conditions and I'm going to change the atmospheric pressure to 0.1 bar, which is 2.9 inches of mercury. So basically, I'm taking away the atmosphere. There's a little bit of atmosphere left. I can't run it at 0 or the equations, they blow up. But I can turn it down to almost like it's a vacuum. But it's not quite a vacuum, but it's pretty close. Okay, so let's launch it again and see what happens. Now this time, I want to, let's check our engine here. Okay, so this time we're going to have a 0-second delay. I'm going to turn it back to 0 seconds. And let's click flight profile and see what happens. So rocket takes off. Holy cow. I don't know if you caught that, but let's see what the flight profile looks like. It's taking off. Right there, it had staged. The booster stage had fallen off already. The booster stage coasted upwards a bit. But look at our altitude down here. We're well over 4,000 feet, 5,000 feet right now. Let's see how, the exact was 5,068 feet. So by taking away the atmosphere, we went from 1,705 feet to 5,068 feet. Of course, this makes sense because the drag on the rocket has been diminished greatly. Now let's run this simulation where the rocket stages right when it stops. So this time I'm gonna throw in I think it was a 7-second delay. And let's run that flight profile. Again, there's hardly any atmosphere here. And we're gonna see what it does. Okay, the rocket takes off. It's coasting upward. The booster stage is still attached. It's almost slowing down to a stop here, right there. The booster stage fell off and the rocket staged. And this time, we're seeing the altitude right here. We're not even going to get close to 5,000 feet, are we? No, the parachute is now open. So here it is, 4,187 feet. Okay, so what we've done so far is by reducing the atmosphere to almost nothing, that is when this chart is accurate. When you're flying a rocket, when there's no atmosphere, such as if you were on the moon, you want to stage the rocket as quick as the booster motor burns out. Now, if you're flying in an atmosphere, these two simulations right here, by slowing down to a complete stop, that is the best time to stage your rocket for the best altitude. Now, there's more to this than just that. If there's any wind, what's going to happen? Okay, so now let's go back to this first simulation, and we're going to add a little bit of wind and see what happens. Okay, so we need 0 second in the booster. Under my launch conditions, I need to change the atmospheric pressure back to 1 bar, which is 29.53 inches of mercury. This is kind of a standard day. This time I'm going to add some wind. And let's going to add an 8-mile-an-hour wind. So now on your screen, the wind will come from the left and go across to the right. Let's see the flight profile here. Okay, so it's sitting on the pad. The rocket launches. The booster falls away already. The rocket coasts upwards. And we get here at peak altitude of 1,600 feet. Let's see the exact. 1,625 feet. Now our first simulation was right here at 1,705. So when there is wind, we lose a lot of altitude. So what's happening here, let me switch screens here. So the rocket takes off and the wind's coming from this way and the rocket's rotating around the center of gravity and it's arcing into the wind. This is called weathercocking. This is normal, but we're going to lose some altitude because of it. Now, our peak altitude in this condition is 1,625 feet versus 1,705. This time, let's put in that 5-second delay, because before we found that the optimal delay was 5 seconds, because that was when the rocket coasted upwards, stopped, and then staged and continued upwards. So let's go back to our screen and put in 5 seconds. So it's right here, 5 seconds. And let's see what that's going to look like. Now remember, the last time we launched the rocket, it was kind of arcing into the wind. So what do you think is going to happen this time? So it's running the simulation. Okay, so this time our rocket is way over here on this side of the screen. And when we launch it, it takes off, motor burns out, but it's still attached. At this point, the booster falls off, and our upper stage is going sideways. So this we want to avoid, obviously, because the rocket is not going up anymore. Now it's going sideways by having that delay. So what do we learn from this? Obviously, there is an optimal delay, and that delay, first, it depends on where you're flying. If you have no atmosphere, the optimal delay will always be 0. If you have atmosphere and there's no wind, the optimal delay will be when the rocket slows down to a complete stop and then stages. If there's wind, now that optimal delay is going to be greater than 0, but less than that optimal delay we had before. It's probably going to be at a lower speed. I would suggest that you always look at RockSim at that 2D flight profile to see exactly what orientation the rocket is. If the rocket is going straight up, you're probably going to be fine to coast a little bit. But if it starts arcing, you have to reduce the delay to make it safe. We put in RockSim that cone, that's called the weathercocking cone, and we want the peak altitude of the rocket to stay within that cone. And if it's on the outside of the cone, if it's going sideways, we don't want to launch it. That's just not safe to do. So I hope this explains what is the optimal delay and how it changes depending on the launch conditions. So you always have to go back to what are the launch conditions where you're running your flight. So my name is Tim Van Milligan. You're watching the Apogee Rocketry Workshop. May the winds be light, may the skies be blue, and may all your rockets fly straight and true.